Let's go on with the first question. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, hey, I'm Eikko or Eikko P, and I'm a designer in Final Fantasy 14. For my designs, I just really enjoy like creating these builds that look really realistic and are builds that are based off of like something that maybe I've seen in an architectural magazine. I really like those kind of artistic kind of builds, just a lot of color, a lot of different textures, or like just really interesting little like nooks and crannies that I want to like, I guess it's funny to say, but make it become alive. I want like walking to the house to be kind of like an experience, and I don't necessarily think that I always do it perfectly, but I do try, and it's really fun to just create builds that are so just maybe a little different from everybody else's.
Yeah, your builds are really different, and it's kind of refreshing to have this. For example, I remember the one you did, the bathroom one, really gorgeous. I mean, it was really like there was a lot of geometric shapes, and we don't necessarily have round-shaped items in Final Fantasy, which is a bummer, but you kind of use this at your advantage in this build, and we don't see that so often, especially the use of the color, and your use of the texture was really interesting and impeccable. Seriously, it was amazing.
That one is my absolute favorite, and that was actually going to be my response for later down, because that's definitely one of my favorite builds, just because I had so much fun just creating it and coming up with ideas for it. I also just really like trying different styles, concept builds, different styles, artistic, like just maybe like a little bit nonsensical builds. I just like to play around with them, and I think it's really fun, and that's what I love about designing.
Is it what makes you continue, or what made you want to do housing?
Yes, absolutely. Laura's Amaro build, if you recall her original one with the little bedroom with the lines coming up, it's completely gorgeous. I love the way it looked, and that was one of my first things that I've seen when I started housing. Like, I just saw this build on Twitter and I was so amazed at it. And my mind was blown that people could create something so beautiful in Final Fantasy. That was what got me started. I was like, I want to create something so beautiful just like that, and that's how I learned how to glitch. It was like the start, my eyes were just open.
And what is your inspiration process and building process, if there is like a difference between these two for you?
I usually just look through a lot of architectural magazines online. Usually, so I do commissions, and they usually ask for houses, right? So I look through a lot of different types of residential buildings in architectural magazines. And there's a lot of really interesting ones, and a lot of things that they do, like really cool like styles that might not translate well into Final Fantasy, but there's still elements of it that can really be kind of like translate them in a little bit, just a little bit, like maybe the colors or textures or something like that. And I just gather a lot of that and I paste the link, or maybe I save some images, like if it's like not on the actual architectural blog or anything. So I have like this giant folder of housing inspo. Like, it's just literally called housing inspiration.
Yeah, I have this one as well. Well, it's fun to know that you do that as well.
Yeah. Oh, I was just meant, as for my building process, it depends on the build really, but if I'm kind of more in a rush, I plan as I build. So I will do the layout first, and then I'll start building like all the insides later. I'll have like this kind of like vague idea, like I'll know where the kitchen is as I'm building the layout. I'll know where the entryway, I'll know where the living room is, but like what I'm gonna do inside each one, it depends all up until I'm actually building it.
Yeah, sometimes you have ID throughout the build, so it's kind of difficult to have this clear image in your head when you start the build. I understand that.
Yeah, but sometimes I have like a very clear image of what I want to build. Sometimes it just hits you, and then you build really fast.
You said the Cubist design was your favorite one of all time, I think. Is it because you had a clear image of what you wanted to do, or is it because it was, except for the rectangular partition, is it because it was really simple to do? Why is it your favorite of all time?
It was just my favorite because I just felt really inspired for it, right? Like, I was like really looking at a woman designer, a woman architect, Zaha Hadid. and she created these wonderfully deconstructed builds, and I was so inspired by these really modern designs that like you don't often see, especially in Final Fantasy. Like a lot of people create these modern builds, they're so stunningly beautiful, I love them to bits and pieces, but you don't really see odd angles. And on top of that, I wanted to create a functional one. Oftentimes you see builds stunningly beautiful, but I also wanted to have that functional aspect.
Yeah, well, I'm more on that end too as well. I prefer something that is more functional. That's like something that makes sense. But it's difficult sometimes because you see something really beautiful that doesn't necessarily make any sense, but it's so freaking good that you want to do the same. But there is a part in your brain, like this little voice, this annoying little voice who says, "But it's not logic. It's not logic. Don't do it." It's so annoying.
What? And then you're like, okay, but why does it matter? Like I always have to tell myself, but why does it matter? Like from like it's like a struggle, you know. You could just be like, I feel like I could maybe be more creative if I just could get over it, you know.
Yes, but in another way, this is our creativity as well. This is part of our building process, of the creativity process. So it's kind of difficult to deal with this little voice.
Yeah, it really is.
All right. What do you think is your strength as a designer?
My strength as a designer is, I think that I'm really oddly confident in myself. Like a lot of things that I'm just like, you know, why not? Well, why can't I do this? And I don't know. I think another one of my strengths is just I don't mind trying different styles. I really enjoy like just dabbling in like vintage, modern, like everything. They're all fair game to me. Like even creating cityscapes, creating all of that. Like as long as I think it's beautiful, I'm willing to try it.
Yeah, you don't limit yourself. You put challenges to yourself, kind of.
Yeah. I think there's a thing to learn from every style, and even styles that I don't necessarily enjoy, like more like medieval kind of styles. Like I'm just not good at them. I don't think I think other people do them better than I do, and I'm just not particularly super interested in it. Like I still think there is stuff to learn from doing those kinds of builds, and I think that's the enjoyable part, like learning, the whole learning process.
What do you think is your challenge as a designer, or maybe something you want to improve?
For sure, clutter. Definitely clutter. I am so bad at clutter. I just like, I try to clutter and it sometimes looks good, but people who can just do like a whole room filled with like delicate clutter and it always looks good. You know, like, what is it? Like planned chaos? Just this beautiful, beautiful planned chaos of messiness, but also just like, it's so beautiful.
Is there a designer that you admire and why?
I have multiple, but two designers that I very much admire. Laura, because she's the one who got me started on all of this, like this entire journey. And her builds are always just, they have this like elegance, stately elegance to them, you know? Like, kind of like her herself, you know? Laura to me is like the stately and elegant person, and like I kind of see it in her builds, and it's really amazing. I love it to death.
Yeah, that's the word actually, elegant. Like there is always this little thing for each designer. They have like this little thing, and sometimes you say, oh yeah, her or his thing is like messy, or her or his thing is like, I don't know, modern. But sometimes it's more subtle than that, and for them it's actually, yeah, it's like, it's raffinate, it's elegant.
Yeah. And the second one is Oat Milk. I love her. Just her designs are so like free. She does whatever she damn wants, and it comes out beautifully.
I mean, it's so her. When you talk to her, she just does and say whatever she wants, and it transpires in her builds as well. I totally agree with you.
Yes, absolutely. I love her. There is not a single oat milk build that I like. I'm just like, oh yeah, it's every single one is like a work of art. And like all these different like her kitchen with a view, her cyberpunk build, the night market, like every single one.
It's mind-blowing.
It is absolutely mind-blowing.
By the way, is there a designer that is actually not really known that you would recommend to us?
I personally think Actius is a really good designer. They have really good vision, and they aren't afraid to try artistic things in their build. They're obviously still like new to the housing like community and they're still like building up their portfolio, but you can tell everything that they do is like it's carefully thought out. Like Actia showed this door once and it was just so beautiful. Like it was like this, I think it was on like this kind of pale like bluish green background and like this bright, like I think it might have been a Roland Berry red door, and it was just the colors is so thoughtful. The way that they just do everything so carefully and beautifully is just, I think it's stunning, and I think that they're an amazing designer.
All right, let's move on to the next question. Question 9. Is there a tip that you would like to share? Like any tip, it can be anything.
One of the things that I learned from Zeno was creating this beautiful pixel-free flat ceiling by using tabletops. So like the potion rack, the new wooden reel table, and I think it's called the wooden display shelf, wooden display case. They're all tabletop tables. So you basically line a loft up to the height of wherever you want to level everything. So you would place like your tabletop on top of a loft, and then you lift the loft to the right height, and then you click off. You know how the floating glitch works, right?
Yeah.
You have to put it into your inventory. So you click off the tabletop, you put it into your inventory, and then you just move the stage panel or whatever partition that you have your loft on around with the loft still on, and just do the floating glitch using the tabletop.
Is there anything more you want to share with us?
So like a couple of the housing people and I want to create this housing magazine as kind of a resource. It's just going to be mostly aesthetic focused. So even though like I think we'll be sharing more houses that have glitches, it's called Eorzean Dwelling. I think that there's a lot of things that can be applied whether or not you do glitches or not, you know? Colors, like everybody can dye their partitions.
Yeah.
Or like just a style, like you don't necessarily have to make like you can make a maybe a more convincing one to some people that if you use glitches, or maybe if you think that's how it is to yourself, but you don't need to. And I just want to focus like on maybe just different tips and tricks and like different content, different styles, like kind of like a real life architectural magazine, but specifically for Final Fantasy XIV. And the first issue is going to be in July. We're looking for a mid to late July first release.